Guy, and I am back with the BCG Star Wars Countdown, where I'll be reviewing episodes 1 through 6 of the Star Wars saga, all leading up to the premiere of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, this Friday. It is almost here, guys. I can't wait to see it. I'm excited. So with episode 1 being a massive disappointment and episode 2 being an abominable piece of shit, a lot of people did not have high hopes for episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. In fact, many people thought it was just gonna follow suit with the rest of the prequel films. But surprisingly, episode 3 defied all expectations and actually turned out to be a pretty good film and a solid addition to the Star Wars saga. Not a great film, mind you, but leagues more entertaining, leagues more enjoyable, and way better than the 2 films that came before it. And in my personal opinion, I think that it could hold its own with the original trilogy. A very controversial opinion, yes, but one that I'm gonna stand firmly by. And to this very day, it still pains me that this episode does not get the full recognition, or hell, even the praise that it truly deserves. It constantly gets a bum rap from everybody, Star Wars fan or average moviegoer, because everyone ropes it in with the other 2 shitty prequel films, and their notoriously bad reputations blinds everyone to the good elements that lie within. And that's why I freaking loved and appreciated when Doug Walker, aka the nostalgia critic himself, did a top 11 list of actual good moments from the Star Wars prequel films, and a majority of the ones he mentioned on the list come from Star Wars Episode 3. I was like, finally, somebody acknowledges the fact that Episode 3 wasn't a complete piece of shit. There are actually some good and even great moments in that film, and he puts it in such a thoughtful and respectful way, not demeaning the value of some of the things that are in Episode 3. And if you have not seen that video, go check it out. It's really well done. He brings up a lot of interesting points, and he does it in a very fast-paced and comedic way, much better than what you're gonna get from me. So you're probably sitting there wondering to yourself, Tony, get to the point already. What made Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, way better than the other prequels? What did they do right in this film? Everything. Sure, they still fucked up on some things, but we'll get to those later. But mostly everything was elevated to the next level. The story, the writing, the characters, the acting, the drama, the music, the visuals, the action. This is what the prequels should have been. The story in episode 3 had a much clearer direction to it. It had focus, it had weight to every situation, and the writing improved as well, as you kind of feel a stronger bond and chemistry between some characters, and some of the lines that they say to each other, it actually felt like they had some good banter. Like, I really enjoyed just seeing the back and forth between Obi-Wan and Anakin. For the first time in this prequel trilogy, I actually felt like they had a real bond and connection. Like, they actually were like these 2 brother type characters who've been like through hell and back. When they tried to pull off playful banter in the second film, it felt forced. When they tried it again in the third film, it felt more natural. The actors finally grew accustomed to each other and they could play off of each other. That was really cool to see. And while on the subject, the characters this time around were far more entertaining, way more interesting, and much more complex as characters than they have ever been in any of the previous prequel films. They had depth. They had intrigue. They had diverse and unique personalities that helped them stand out. In the previous films, you could give 2 shits about any of the characters on screen. They were all interchangeable because they all lacked charisma, they all lacked personality, they had no chemistry with any other characters, they had no real development given to them, they're all paper thin and stoic. There's no real attachment. You don't care about the characters because you learn nothing about them. I learned more about Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan, the Jedis, and the Sith Lord in this film than I have ever learned in any of the other films. And believe it or not, some of the acting in this film has also improved. Now, I'm not saying it's grade A Oscar level performances. What I'm saying is The actors and actresses are starting to feel more comfortable in their roles, and they're having fun with their performances. In the other films, they're always treating it so seriously, and they're so stoic with their performances. In this one, I actually felt like some of them added some wit, some of them added their own charms to the characters, especially Ewan McGregor and the guy who plays Emperor Palpatine. They definitely had free range to have fun with their characters. I could really tell Ewan McGregor fully embraced being Obi-Wan for the first time ever in the prequels. And Emperor Palpatine, holy crap, this guy is just freaking over the top in all the right ways. It's just made for a very entertaining and memorable character, and the performance itself is as memorable. But that's not to say that all of the acting was good or memorably fun. I still felt like Natalie Portman, as much as I love her and as much as I acknowledge that she's a great actress, gave a weak and shoehorned in performance. It just felt like she didn't want to be there, and she didn't put much effort in her role, and she's like, whatever, I'll just do this for the paycheck now. And there are scenes where she does adequately well, and other times I felt like she could have done a little better, or she just went way too over the top. Like, the most memorable scene with her in the entire film is, Anakin, you're breaking my heart! I mean, it's just, I didn't buy the emotional weight of this scene. I didn't feel like she had to do that, but it fit the tone of the movie. The movie is over the top. I mean, to give an over-the-top performance in an over-the-top movie, it's fine, but I just never really bought her performance in its entirety. And Hayden Christensen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this was a great performance from him. It's not. He still delivers lines like he's a robot, and sometimes he's very stoic. But if we're going to base it solely off of physical performance, the guy has a presence. It's like really, really good. He can convey emotions so well through his facial expressions. And I have to thank the Nostalgia Critic for pointing this out. I didn't even notice it until he said it in his top 11 list. Like, when he's not saying lines that were written by George Lucas and it's just him giving expressions on his face, he's great. Like, seriously, watch the film again and just watch his face. Like the scene where Natalie Portman, or I should say Padme, tells Anakin that she's pregnant. You know, he goes, wow, that's great. That's wonderful. He goes from being like terrified, scared out of his mind, to happy and like, yeah, this is a great moment, but he's still fearful about what's happening. You don't get it from the line, you get it from his facial expression. Or when, you know, he comes off as very sinister, he has that look, like the guy is freaking frightening. When he turns into Darth Vader and he's killing kids, my God, it's the devil incarnate once again. Or the really excellent scene where you see Anakin in the Jedi Temple staring out into the distance, kind of like he's looking at Padme at their place, and Padme is also looking at him, and they just share this really long stare with each other as they're contemplating what the future holds for them, and he's fearful about losing Padme. This is one of the most atmospheric scenes I've ever seen in a Star Wars film. Absolutely no dialogue is said, but so much is said in the scene. You really see the suffering of Anakin in this very moment. He's conflicted as to whether or not he should let the Emperor live or should he let the Emperor die. And speaking of that well-executed and powerful scene, the drama and atmosphere is handled so well in this film. And I was so surprised. I mean, they easily could have made it an over-the-top melodrama, but they handle the issues and drama with the characters very subtly. Like, again, when Anakin finds out that Padme is pregnant, you know, it's not like he's like, oh God, whoa, no, woe is me, but oh, I love you, dear, it's gonna be great, but what's gonna happen to us? They easily could have done that. Instead, it's very subtle. It's a small little moment where they feel anxiety and fear, but at the same time, they're happy and joyful. They're bringing life into this world. And the film is dripping with atmosphere, something that was terribly lacking in the other films. It actually gave the film a sort of identity and personality. The atmosphere can either feel grand, larger than life, or dark and dreary. Either way, you get sucked into the moment. The action in this film was actually fun to watch. It was engaging and thrilling, and it does add to the adventure. Especially that opening space battle sequence. It felt so grand and epic. I could not get enough of it. It looked freaking awesome. And while on that subject, the visual effects are well done in this film as well. I'm not gonna deny that they do use a lot of CGI in the film, but I guess the main reason as to why I like the CGI more in episode 3 than in episode 2 is the fact that the CGI felt more alive. These environments were lush, they were grand, they were colorful and inviting. The CGI used in episode 2, it's bleak and boring, lacking any sort of personality. I mean, think about it. You go to like a rainy planet and it's just rainy CGI. You go to a desert planet, most of the things are toned down colors and it's just not that visually appealing. In episode 3, the environments are more visually appealing. From that green planet where General Grievous was hiding to the volcano planet. I mean, that looked freaking awesome. And speaking of that volcano planet duel, two things I want to mention. First, the score by John Williams. That score when Anakin and Obi-Wan are dueling, that's a freaking awesome score. There's actually this one part where it crescendos and freaking Anakin stops Obi-Wan's hand and you see the volcano explode in the background. I'm like, yes! Fuck yeah, that was awesome! And that fight itself was so freaking intense and memorable. It was all of the awesomeness. And I know a lot of people felt like that fight scene dragged on for way too long, but you gotta understand, there was so much going on in that scene. It wasn't just a fight between two Jedis, it was a fight between two brothers, two people that were really close and had a connection with each other. There's a lot at stake, there's a lot of emotion in this scene, and I honestly could have watched it forever. And the way that fight ends breaks my heart every time I see it. You just see Obi-Wan open up to Anakin for the first time. He's just like, you are the chosen one! You're supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them! You're supposed to bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! You were my brother! I loved you! Ewan McGregor killed it in this scene. I don't care what anybody says. That was a powerful and emotional performance, and Ewan McGregor, I salute you. And of course, we can't talk about episode 3 without mentioning the iconic Execute Order 66 scene. Oh man, my soul sunk low when that happened. I'm like, nah, the Jedis, they're getting wiped out. No, please, no, don't kill them. I love them. Oh god, that was so painful to watch, especially Yoda's reaction to the massacre. He drops his cane, he grabs his chest. It's almost like he's saying to himself, I feel a great disturbance of the Force. And those two stupid fucking stormtroopers thinking they could get the drop on Yoda, they're like walking up to him like, yeah, let's blast this fool away. And he just turns on his lightsaber like, what the? Cuts their heads clean off. I'm like, that's fucking Yoda right there. That guy's fucking badass. But as much as I really enjoyed this film, it isn't without its fair share of faults. And yes, it does have quite a few. Like the romantic banter between Anakin and Padme. It's still painful to watch. Have they not learned their lesson from episode 2? I mean, just look at this scene.
You're so beautiful.
It's only because I'm so in love.
No, no, it's because I'm so in love with you.
So love has blinded you?
What the fuck did I tell you, George? Show, don't tell. Don't make the characters say how much they love each other. Show it through their actions. Hell, you did an amazing job with that one scene where Anakin and Padme are sharing a deep stare from a distance. That was powerful, and it shows you how much they love each other without saying a single line of dialogue. That was amazing. Why did you put in this forced romantic banter into episode 3? It just ruins a lot. But it's not just the romantic dialogue that's cringeworthy. The writing does suffer in some parts, and there are many lines that just make you facepalm constantly. Now, I was gonna say like the Emperor, like when he's being attacked by Mace and he's pinned down, he's like, no, you die, you, ultimate power. I was gonna say that's one of them, but you know what? That scene is just so hilarious. I can't say I hate it. I really enjoyed that. But I think the one that I found the most cringeworthy, and again, this is what I mean, George. Show, don't tell. You can just show the anguish of the characters when, you know, Anakin's finally transformed into Darth Vader and he finds out what happens to Padme after he goes through his transition. He finds out she's dead. And he just like, I felt her. No! Do you know how great and powerful that moment would have been if you took out that silly no and just show everything around him breaking and crumbling apart. The ground is shaking, he breaks from his chains, he drops to his knees and puts his hands in the air just in total anguish. The villain characters, besides Emperor Palpatine and to a lesser extent Anakin, were weak, forgettable, and ineffectual. They barely leave a dent in this film. You got Count Dooku, the main antagonist of episode 2, leader of the Separatists, and a secret powerful Sith Lord who was the apprentice to Yoda. This guy's supposed to be a badass, yet he goes out like a punk bitch less than 10 minutes into this film. You can't even call his appearance like a reoccurring character or even like a villain character in this film. He might as well have just been a cameo. He shows up, fights with Obi-Wan and Anakin, taunts them like, oh, you can't defeat me. And then Anakin cuts his freaking head off, and that's the last we see of Count Dooku. Wow. And this is supposed to come off as a menacing Sith Lord? Count Dooku was, without question, the weakest Sith Lord in the entire Star Wars film saga. I know they explore his character more in the TV series, but just based on the films alone, he's pretty ineffectual and forgettable. And speaking of wasted villains that were way more interesting in the TV series, we got General Grievous. Now, I saw the 2D animated miniseries, The Clone Wars, back in 2003, 2004, and I really enjoyed it. And in that miniseries, they introduced a new villain named General Grievous. And the guy was pretty badass. I mean, he had 4 arms, he carried 4 lightsabers, he was a silent character that just went around and just started chopping people up, and then he got shot in the chest or hit in the chest by Yoda, and that's why he wheezes in episode 3. A lot of people didn't know that, but I thought that was very interesting how they kept the continuity with that character. But in this film, again, similar to Count Dooku, he shows up, runs away, and then he goes into hiding, he gets discovered, and he fights, and he goes out like a punk bitch. Gets shot in the chest, and he's dead. I'm like, wow, lame. And the last issue I found with this film that just truly irked me were all the forced tie-ins to the original film, A New Hope. They didn't feel organic, they felt out of place, like they were shoehorned in there just so they could tie in with the original film. I'm like, why do that? They feel out of place and you don't need them. They don't add anything to the final moments. A few of the times that I felt like were incredibly forced was the fact that Padme named Luke and Leia. I felt like they should have either let the adopted parents name the kids or have Padme at least spend like a few moments with her kids before passing away. Not like a few minutes or a few hours. I mean like maybe a few days and then she dies. Like my little Luke and my little Leia, and then she passes away and there could be some significance to the name. But no, it's just like Luke, Leia, And the biggest one that I surprisingly took issue with was the decision to separate Luke and Leia. Now, I understand why they had to do it and why they put this particular scene in episode 3 to tie into the original, because in the original they're separated at birth and they don't know that they're brother and sister. But from a story standpoint and logically, it really doesn't add up. I mean, it's not like Anakin knew Padme was pregnant with 2 children. All he really knew was that Padme was pregnant, so he was going to have a son or daughter, so why separate them? Hell, the smarter and safer decision should have been to keep them together rather than separating them, as it would make them less suspicious. I mean, again, Anakin didn't know that Padme was pregnant with 2 babies. All he knew is that he was having a child with Padme. So he's not going to be searching the galaxy looking for twins. He's going to be searching the galaxy looking for his child, singular. But hell, maybe I'm just looking way too into it. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of it all. The story still flows nicely. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. George, that just didn't make any sense. And so, overall, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is an exceptional Star Wars film and the best of the prequel trilogy. And I know that's not saying much to some people, as the other 2 were complete shit, but I just felt like it needed to be said. It's a highly underrated Star Wars film. I don't think people give it enough recognition, and I hope more people in the future will come to realize that The Revenge of the Sith is not a bad film. It's actually pretty good. It's very entertaining. Although they do mess up some things in the film, I felt like they got more things right than wrong. And that's why I'm going to give the film, surprisingly, a 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it is definitely worth watching, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. Go check it out. But as always, what did you guys think of this film? Did you like and enjoy it as much as I did? Or did you find it really disappointing and underwhelming and you just hated it? And since I finished all of the prequel films, let me know which was your favorite Star Wars prequel film. Comment below and let me know. And I know I said I was going to review Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope tomorrow, but I actually decided that I'm going to do my anime review on Monday, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'll do the original trilogy. I thought it was ingenious, put a break between the two trilogies. I think that's really cool. So stay tuned for my anime review tomorrow and also the start of the 12 days of anime. And this entire week, guys, you are going to be getting 2 videos every day. I hope you guys are excited for that. But until then, guys, if you'd like to see more Star Wars videos, more 12 Days of Anime videos, or more anime reviews, hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm Tony Watt II with all the power as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.